Talking about the big story of the day with its deeper ramifications for endless Chinese aggression along the line of actual control. The Narendra Modi government briefed Parliament on the ongoing tension with China, admitting that India was facing a challenge in Ladakh, but choosing to remain ambiguous about the operational details, including how far the Chinese have come into the Indian territory. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh made it absolutely clear that China is the aggressor and that Indian forces have done counter-deployment to challenge the neighbors' attempts to unilaterally change the status quo at the line of actual control. Rajnath Singh read out a statement in the Lok Sabha saying the violent conduct of Chinese forces has been in complete violation of all mutually agreed norms. I will not hesitate to share the august house that we are facing a challenge in Ladakh, he said, adding that in the past too, India has had situations of prolonged standoffs in border areas with China which have really been resolved peacefully. Even though the situation this year is very difficult for both in terms of scale of troops involved and the number of friction points, we do remain committed to the peaceful resolution of the current situation. At the same time, the House can be assured that we remain prepared to deal with all contingencies, the Defense Minister said. Since April, we had noticed a buildup of troops and armaments by Chinese side in the border areas adjacent to eastern Ladakh, he said. Then, in early May, the Chinese took action to hinder the normal tradition patrolling pattern of Indian troops in Galwan Valley area, which resulted in a face-off. Even as this situation was being addressed by the ground commanders as per the provisions of bilateral agreements and protocol in mid-May, The Chinese side made several attempts to transgress the LAC in other parts of the western sector, that's Ladakh. This included Kongkala, Gogra and the northern bank of Pangong Lake. These attempts were detected early and consequently responded to appropriately by our armed forces, the defense minister said. Rajnath Singh also said that while no one should be in doubt in India's determination to safeguard its borders, the country believes that mutual respect and mutual sensitivity are the basis of peaceful relations with neighbors. We want to resolve the current situation through dialogue. We have maintained diplomatic and military engagements with the Chinese side, he said. The minister added that in these discussions, India has maintained three key principles that determine the approach. Both sides should strictly respect and observe the LAC. Neither side should attempt to alter the status quo unilaterally, and all arrangements and agreements and understandings between the two sides must be abided by in their entirety. China, on its part, took the position that the situation should be handled in a responsible manner and ensure peace and tranquility according to bilateral agreements and protocol, he told the Lok Sabha. Even as these discussions were going on, and on the Chinese side again engaged in provocative military maneuvers on the night of 29 and 30th August in an attempt to change the status quo in the South Bank area of Pangong Lake, Singh said. But yet again, timely and firm actions by our armed forces along LAC prevented such attempts from succeeding. He explained that as of now the Chinese side has mobilized a large number of troops and armaments along the LAC as well as in the depth areas, and there are several friction areas in the eastern Ladakh including Gogra, Kongkala and the northern and southern bank of Pangong So. In response to China's actions, our armed forces have also made appropriate counter-deployments in these areas to ensure that India's security interests are fully protected, Singh said, adding that House should have full confidence that our armed forces will always rise to challenge and do us all the proud. This is still an ongoing situation and obviously involves sensitive operational issues. I would therefore not be able to give more details in public, and I am confident about the understanding of the House in this regard, he said. After the Indian Army outflanked the PLA on Rezangla, Renchenla ridgeline south of Pangong So on August 29 and 30, repositioning its troops to dominate the heights of Finger 4 spur on the north bank of the lake. The Chinese armed first tried to military muscle the advisory by moving in tanks and infantry combat vehicles rather than be crowded by the PLA strength. The Indian Army made it clear that there would be retaliation if the red line is breached on either banks. While the Indian Army was not amused by Chinese military tactics, the military commanders rolled up in mirth after PLA troops on Finger 4 starting belting out Punjabi numbers to be softened up by adversary into lowering their guard on the fiercely contested mountainous spur. If the north bank of Pangong So was jiving to Punjabi songs on PLA loudspeakers, a battery of loudspeakers were deployed by the Red Army at their Moldo garrison in Chishul sector to remind the Indian troops of what they claim is folly of their political masters. On the southern banks of Pangong So, the Chinese loudspeakers told Indian troops in chaste Hindi about the futility of being deployed all these heights in winter season on the whims and fancies of Indian politicians back in Delhi. The whole idea of PLA is to pull down the morale of Indian troops and create dissatisfaction among the soldiers that they do not always get hot steaming meals and logistics as snowy winter also lies ahead. According to former Indian Army chief, the PLA used the same loudspeaker tactics in 1962 skirmishes in the western and eastern sectors, as well as during the 1967 Nathlal skirmish, but the Indian troops were foxed about the Punjabi songs on Finger 4. Maybe the PLA thought that troops from Punjab were holding on to the higher heights of Finger 4 feature, said the former army chief. While the Red Army is using PSYOPs at Bangkok, so against the Indian Army, a Chinese Communist Party mouthpiece has also been tweeting its heart out, reminding the Indian political leaders about the loss of face in 1962, the need for India to recover its economy, that it says it has sunk to abysmal depth to check the rampant spread of coronavirus in India, without mentioning that virus originated in Wuhan. The propaganda paper and its online site also describes the Modi government's tough stance on Ladakh friction as tactics to divert attention from domestic strife. Incidentally, the same holds true for Chinese Communist Party General Secretary Jinping, who initiated PLA aggression in Ladakh to divert attention. Preparing for a long winter ahead, facing the People's Liberation Army in East Ladakh, the Border Roads Organization, that's BRO, has decided to allow Srinagar, Zoji, La Kargil, Leh access to be closed only for 45 days from past average 95 days due to snow this year, and will strengthen all the bridges, Dalbuk, Shiok, Daulat Beg, Oldie, that's DBO road, to bear the load of tanks plus truck trailers by next month. Authoritative government sources told that BRO under the Defense Ministry will also keep the new Darjapadam Nimu Leh road clear of snow throughout the December and January 2021, so that the military supply route is maintained round the clock. The Modi government is now considering to prepare the shortest tunnel at Shinkula on Darjapadam axis so that the road is snow free throughout the year. Given that the PLA is showing no sign of abiding with agreements between the special representatives on boundary talks, that's July 5, 2020, and between foreign ministers September 10, 2020 on total disengagements to restore the status quo on LAC, the Indian Army is rushing in supplies with the BRO, ensuring that 17,580 feet high Changla Pass and 17,582 feet Khadumla en route to contested Bangkok So is kept snow-free throughout the year. with an aim to keep weapon deployment in East Ladakh to match the PLA build-up in occupied Oxide Chin, the BRO is expected to strengthen all bridges and culverts to Class 70 on the DSDBO road by October 15. Class 70 bridge means that it can bear a load of 70 tons, which is more than the weight of a full loaded tank trailer. In a strategic terms, this means that case of worst case scenario, the DSBO road can be used to deploy T-90 tanks, infantry combat vehicle and surface-to-air missile, also all along the eastern Ladakh line of actual control with Tibet. Well, the BRO is expected to validate the Darchapadam-Nimule axis for heavy vehicles traffic this month. There is intense discussion within the Ministry of Defense on the length and alignment of the tunnel under 16,000 feet. Shinkula, the National Highways Infrastructure Development Corporation, that's NHIDCL, has been tasked to study the shortest possible alignment for the tunnel so that it can be readied in next 4 years. Majority of the stakeholders, including Ministry of Surface Transport, are in favor of a shorter 4 to 4.5 kilometer tunnel alignment on the current axis rather than a 13 kilometer alignment suggested by Snow and Avalanche Study Establishment of the Defense Ministry. The longer alignment will not only delay the project with a host of studies and detailed project report to completed, it has now been left to Defense Minister Rajnath Singh to take a final call. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has accused China of unilaterally violating the bilateral agreements signed in 1993 and 1996. Speaking in Parliament on Tuesday about the ongoing tensions at the LAC in eastern Ladakh, said that the border issue remained unsolved because China does not recognize the current boundary. He added that in standing up to the transgressions by China, Indian troops at LAC had shown both patience and resolve and courage and valor. While the situation at the border continues to remain tense on both the sides of Pangong Lake, the onset of winter, which arrives early these parts of the Himalayas, may force the two armies to recalibrate their strategies. But the danger of China pushing to grab more territory in the weeks ahead is real possibility. After the bloody clash in Galwan in June and China's subsequent aggressive behavior, Indian troops on the ground and their commanders have very little reason to trust the Chinese. Well, looking at the Chinese pattern of behavior through the global pandemic, including its moves in Ladakh, Hong Kong, the South China Sea and near Taiwan, it's clear that China is intentionally ratcheting up the pressure in the region. But the question is why? Some pundits believe that the answer may have to do with President Xi Jinping's domestic standing in China. Well, the misadventures of Chinese are being monitored by ever-vigilant Indian Army, and an appropriate answer will be given to Chinese Army at the appropriate time. Well, that was the wrap of this story. Thank you for watching. Take care.